Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another rules breakdown, and this time I'm going to be looking at this SAKE or SAKE, Sorcerers, Adventurers, Kings and Economics, which is a Estonian RPG released last year in Estonian, which has been translated to English and is now available on DriveThru RPG. There's also a Kickstarter for a larger version of the rules with some more extra modules in it, because it's a modular RPG where you can plug in sections as you desire to make it more or less complex and to fulfill the different roles of the game that you want. Now, it is a very crunchy rule set, so that is generally beyond the realm of these videos, as the aim is just to get you the basics of the rule set. So what I'm going to be doing is covering the absolute basics, but I will point you towards where the extra crunch is. So we can get through the first couple of sessions, and then as you go on to further ones, you can dig into the details of the system and add complexity to it as you get more used to the rules. Now, as usual, I've downloaded a character sheet. They're all available through the sake.ee website, but also hyperlinked from the rules book itself. So when you look up an archetype, you can download the character sheet. Now, this is the Azure Warrior, and I'll be using that as the player character version, and when we come to the combat section I'm going to be using the wolf here. Now, I haven't chosen them for any particular reason. They're basically the first in each game section, so I just chose them for those random reasons. Anyway, let's have a look at the rules. So, skills. Well, skills are dealt with on page 19 and page 20. So let's go to page 19. Skills and their uses. Basically, you're rolling a d20 and adding a bonus off your character. And when you're going against a static target number, we've got difficulty levels here. So 5 is an easy task that requires no skill to complete. Basically, you wouldn't bother normally rolling. It's only when the time is of the essence. So you're trying to get something done quickly. But otherwise, if you had time, you'd just succeed anyway. 10 is a task that requires some experience, like picking a simple lock. Moderately complex is 15, complex is 20, 25 is difficult, 30 is unbelievably difficult. So let's say a character is trying to climb over a wall. We've got a task that requires some experience. Moderately complex has climbing a 2-story building. So we'll put it in between, let's say 12. So the character here has an athletics of +3. So we're rolling a d20. And we rolled a 1. Well, that's a bad thing, because this system has critical hits and critical failures. If we go back to the rulebook, over the page, we've got natural 20s and 1s. Roll a natural 20, you roll on this table. And basically it adds bonuses. If you get 1 to 50, it does nothing. 50 to 75 are +2. 76 to 85 +5. 86 to 95 +10. Up to 100, you get an immediate accomplishment or +40. But we rolled a critical failure, so we're going to be taking away. So we've got 1 so far. We've got +3 from his skills, so we've only got 4. So we're rolling a d100 and a d10. And we roll 0, 3, which is nothing happens. So he has only got 4 on his skill roll. However, if we'd rolled 50 to 75, we'd have got -2, a -5, higher than that, -25s, -30s, or even immediately fail or -30. So, if a percentage throw results in a check throw of 0 or less, it signifies that something terrible is about to happen. Further details can be found in chapters about sorcery and fighting. If a player throws a d12 because they have no skill ranks, they could still be using the previous charts for natural 1 and natural 12. So, in those occasions, if we're using this character to sneak, for example, he has no stealth skills. So instead of rolling a d20, he's actually only rolling a d12. So we clear that, throw a d12, and we've rolled a 5. So he's got 5 on his stealth roll. Now, using the same character to spot, he has 1 rank in perception. So he is skilled in that. So he is going to be rolling a d20 and adding 1. And he rolls a 17, getting 18, far beating the stealth roll, so he spots the person that's sneaking. Now, the quirks here are the critical hits, and you can get bonuses from lots of places. And with the critical hits and critical failures, it can make a massive difference. But I imagine once your character is leveled up and repeatedly gained bonuses, that this will have a slightly lesser effect, but it's still going to be important rolling a critical hit or a critical failure. There's still going to be this chance that you are going to totally mess up, or you definitely will succeed. And initiative. Well, it's dealt with on page 95, so if I flick forward through the many pages to there, we come to Start of Combat on page 95. In combat rounds, the order of actions is determined by a reflexes roll, d20 plus reflexes. So let's have a look at our As Your Warrior. Now he has a reflexes of 2, based on the fact he has speed. He has no other bonuses from it. So we're going to roll a d20 and add 2. And he gets a 17, so he gets a 19. Now the wolf has a plus 5. So we throw a d20 for it. We get a 4, it gets 9, so it's going second. Now, in combat, everyone gets an action and a reaction. Now, the actions are based on what you're doing. So if we flick on a couple of pages to page 97, we have the different actions where it lists them. Full attacks, movement up to movement speed, combat maneuvers, engaging hand-to-hand, other activities, etc. But it also lists on the other side, in which cases does this action trigger a reaction? Because it's possible to do reactions where you hit people. Like when you are attacking somebody who moves through your threatened zone in Dungeons & Dragons, and you get to do an attack of opportunity. You do get things, because it's got attack of opportunity with a melee weapon, and attack of opportunity with ranged weapons in this. So when you see somebody moving around, you can attack them. You can attack them if they are nearby through an adjacent hexagon to you with a melee attack. And that's what everybody gets. Everybody gets those 2 things, but the reactions are only triggered dependent on what your opponent is doing. And so combat. Well, if we go on to page 94, we have the description of combat. Combat works as following. An attack roll is made with a d20 versus a parrying roll made with a d20. So we look at the Azure Warrior, because he was going first, and we can see he has a silver katana that he gets a plus 6 bonus for. So we're rolling a d20 plus a d6, and he only gets 9. 3 plus 6 is 9. Now we look at the wolf. Now the wolf has parrying, but it uses its reflexes. So we're rolling a d20 plus 5 for its reflexes. So it's got an 18 straight away, plus 5 is 23. It has avoided the attack, because it got the superior roll. Now, like in the standard rules, we have critical successes and critical failures. If we go on to page 102, we've got critical hits, where you get plus 5 to your attack rolls, plus 15. You hit the opponent's weapon and the opponent, damage is dealt to both, so you get a chance to break their weapon. Attack hits the arm, check the maneuvers table. And critical misses, so if we roll particularly badly, we can break our weapon and have other effects. Also in combat, there are maneuvers. So if you're doing a defensive stance, delayed attacks, disarm maneuvers, choking, tripping, 180-degree strike, cold shot to the arm, to the hand, to the leg, to the head, they've all got attack penalties, but they've got descriptions. So if you do an attack to the head, you get minus 6 to your skill, but the damage does is times 2. And that's the way it works. That's the extra layer of complexity to the rules. But basically you're rolling a d20, adding your skill to see whether you beat the opponent's defense. Now, for the sake of damage, we'll pretend that the Azure Warrior actually made his hit. Or perhaps I should have gone on to the wolf attacking. But the Azure Warrior made his hit. Now, damage is obviously based on what maneuver you've used, whether you had a critical hit, but also on your weapon. So if we look at the Azure Warrior here, he's got a silver katana. His damage is d10 plus 4. And we're going to be rolling that. However, the extra thing is piercing here. We can see the basic crossbow below has 2 levels of piercing, because armor takes directly off the damage. So if he was attacking himself, he's wearing leather armor, which gives him a damage reduction of 2. So we're rolling d10 plus 4 minus 2 for the armor. But the basic crossbow with its 2 levels of piercing would go through those 2 levels. Now that doesn't add to the damage if you've got more levels of piercing than you do have armor. It just acts to reduce the reduction. Anyway, so D10 plus 4 damage we're going to be rolling. We've rolled a 6, plus 4 is 10. So, health. Well, health is dealt with hit points. And the Azure Warrior here has 14. So if he'd just received 10 points of damage, he'd have been down to 4 hit points left. Now, this does come with a disadvantage. If we go back to page 95, a person becomes wounded when their health drops to half in this state. They receive a -2 penalty to all physical activity rolls, including attack, parrying, damage, athletics, etc. Similarly, a character becomes severely wounded when their health points drop to 1/4. In this state, they receive a -4 penalty. When a character's health points drop to 0, any additional damage is applied to their body attribute. If a character's hit points drop to 0 but their body is not negative, they are still conscious but unable to stand up. In this state, they receive -10 penalty for all physical activity rolls. Despite the penalty, they can attempt some actions, such as attacking with firearms. If their body drops to 0 negative, they lose consciousness and their body continues to deteriorate. Every round they lose 1 point, and a body roll of 15 is required to stop it for an hour. If a character's body, example -2, they normally lose consciousness when their health points drop to 0. Companions of an unconscious character can use first aid kits to stop the body points from decreasing. To do this, they need to make a medicine roll of 15. Additionally, a successful medicine check with a first aid kit can heal at least 1 hit point and restore consciousness. If injuries are patched up without using a first aid kit, a medicine roll of 15 is required to stop the body from deteriorating. However, the character remains unconscious. And we've got mentions about medical healing here, and if the characters are interested in what happens to their soul after death or are capable of communicating with souls, it's relevant for some reason, they can roll willpower to determine if their soul can be retrieved later on. If the roll's less than 20, soul passes through. If it's 20 or higher, their soul remains trapped in known worlds, mostly in the otherworld. But the Azure Warrior wasn't hitting himself, he was hitting the wolf. So, the wolf has no damage reduction, and it has it has hit points of 6. So 10 points of damage puts the wolf down on the ground. It's breathing its last. Wolves won't tend to patch each other up, so it's going to die. And advancement. Well, we go back to page 16 for this. It's dealt with very early in the rules, and it talks about character progression. Characters earn experience points throughout the game. Generally 10 to 30 experience points for a game session, depending on the length and intensity of the game. How to obtain it, and it's got various advice on there. But spending it is split throughout the rules. If we go on just a couple of pages, or on to the next page in fact, we've got health points. 1 hit point costs 2 experience. And that's kind of the way it deals with it throughout. That we've got costs for skills, we've got the abilities, reading and writing cost 5 experience, foreign languages cost 5 experience, health points 2, as we said, reflexes 2, parrying 3, undemanding body, we've got different abilities, vigorous, polyglot, etc. And you can buy all of those with experience as you go on. And the costs are in there, as they are in the magic sections if you're playing a magically inclined character. So that is SAKE. Now, it's an interesting system. I especially like the modular nature of it, because while those core rules are quite simple, and you can definitely get on top of those, once you start adding maneuvers and getting involved in all the critical hit tables and getting used to the way all of this works together and meshes, adding on modules, as is the nature of this modular game, there's a lot of tactical play which can come in there. But we haven't even touched on the kings and economics part of it, which is this whole game on top of it, where you rule kingdoms, where you get lands, you're building up villages, creating trade routes, and doing all the things that a ruler does. Now, this is something which I've felt was sadly missing from Dungeons & Dragons since about 3rd edition. The earlier editions did deal with this, but they abandoned it. And we've just had the dungeon delving parts of it. But SAKE really does cover all of this. I'm terribly impressed. But anyway, as usual, I've probably whittled on for quite long enough. So thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.